But what does it mean to you to receive this award? Such a short list of JMU greats that have won the Bill Dudley Award.
I mean, it's an absolute honor just to represent this university yet again in a positive light and to bring nice notoriety to the university is nice. This award is bigger than me. This award is a representation of our team success, offensive success, defensive success. So a lot of it went into this. I want to thank the voters again on the panel for deeming me the right guy to fit this award and to be able to join the long list of names not only within this university but overall. It is truly a humbling experience and an honor.
All right, now let's take questions from media here in the room. First, Katie Harper from the Daily News Record.
Alonza, it's been a pretty busy weekend for you, graduating from college on Saturday and then going into prep for this game this weekend. What has the last few days been like for you?
I mean, it's been nice. It's been crazy just thinking about how it feels like I just got to this university last month, and then you blink and now I'm walking across the graduation stage. So just being able to do that and to make history with the rest of my guys has truly been an honor. It's really a surreal experience.
And as you head into this Saturday against Oregon, there are maybe some people that are just kind of finding out about you guys now, and I asked all of them this, but what do you think that people should know about JMU and about this team specifically and why you're at this moment?
This is a legit team. It's the epitome of a team. Like I've said before, it's a team that really cares about each other. I know when I've said that, we've talked about the offense side of the ball, but that goes between units, defense as well. Special teams, coaches to players, coaches to coaches. There's nothing but genuine interactions around this place, and I believe that's what makes this team and this place special because that's just, the energy that we get reciprocated outside of the building. Just a simple motto, Dukes hold doors. I think that goes a long way into really showing the world how this university and this community is.
Let's go to Preston Comer from The Breeze.
I know you guys will be playing certain sounds and songs at practice to try and mimic Oregon Stadium, but how do you, I guess, mentally prepare yourself to play in an intense environment like that?
You can't psych yourself out and lose a game before you start the game. You have to remember just base day one why you started playing this game as a kid. I think if you were to ask everybody on this team, especially this generation, this era, who was your favorite football team growing up? People probably say Oregon. They had the flashy jerseys, Marcus Mariota, Darren Thomas, Devin Carrington, Kenyon Barner, a bunch of people. I was one of those kids that grew up watching Oregon. And so this is environments that you dream of playing in. And, if you are who you say you are, you can't shut down when the lights are bright.
Are there maybe any extra conversations that have been had or are to be had with offensive line and Coach Kennedy just to make sure that communication is clear and aren't any mishaps on that end come Saturday?
Yeah, we've had that covered. We have, multiple plans just to kind of determine the best possibility when you go into an environment like this. You hear a lot. I mean, I've seen on film people still do the clap. There were some people that did the silent cadence. So, that's something that we'll kind of figure out. We have a plan going into the game, but it's not until you're in that environment do you know what's best for the team, and, we'll make the necessary adjustments.
Jarvis Heron from WHSV.
Alonza, congrats again on your degree over the weekend.
Thank you.
What have you seen from Oregon in terms of defensively and the challenges that they present to you all?
Yeah, they're a legit defense. They're a college football playoff defense, and I wouldn't expect anything else. When you look at the front four, they're huge. They're dancing bears, as I've referred to them. They're big guys that can move, and they play well. They get after the pass rusher, and they're aggressive. We move that to the linebackers. They're really savvy. They're big. They do a good job playing in space and kind of maximizing, their zone integrity. And then when you get to the corners, statistically on paper, it says that they're young guys. But to me, I see them. They play like savvy veterans. They look really comfortable out there in one-on-one situations. And I believe the same thing is to be said about the safeties. They do a good job playing in their zone responsibility. When they have to play man-to-man, they're really solid. So they're a really good defense.
I asked Trent this as well, but just where have you all improved the most as a team from the last time you all played a quote-unquote Power 4 opponent all the way back in September when that was?
Yeah, we were still figuring things out on both sides of the ball. I believe you could see that in that game. And just knowing the guy to the left and to the right of you, how they play, how they move. The best method of communication is another way that we've been able to grow and improve, especially, from the quarterback to the receiver to the O-line, especially on the offense side of the ball. Obviously, defense played really well, but offensively, we really began to establish an identity, and just to be able to kind of get a nice environment as well in our back pocket is great.
Let's go over to Lane Casadane with CBS 6.
I just found this out yesterday. You went to Grimsley?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard from any other Whirlies about this opportunity, or from anybody else that you know that plays kind of at this G5 level about, hey, go carry the banner for us, go win one for us?
Yeah, I've heard a lot from my teammates, my former teammates. One of my high school center, Henry Harden, was at Marshall. So just to be able to talk to him after the game was a pleasure to do. And the Worley community, it kind of reminds me of Harrisonburg in a way. Everybody cares about each other. Everybody's really close. And, I still communicate with every single one of my coaches to this day. They show a lot of love and a lot of support on social media and through text message, which means a lot to me.
And specifically for you, what have you found throughout your career that works for you getting ready for an opponent that, on film you can't quite replicate their speed or their size in practice? What works for you in getting ready for any opponent like that? Yeah,
just making sure that I'm at the peak of my game, that I have all my film watched again, and watched again. So being able to try to anticipate that stuff. Obviously, you can't predict everything. I can't see the future. Just trying to watch as much film as I can, learn body movements, body movements, angles, things of that nature to help me make my decisions a little quicker.
Connor Bergen with WHSV.
Zoe, congrats on the award.
Thank you.
Graduation. With a lot of this outside noise, I know this team always talks about backing it out, but when you get national talking heads talking about JMU saying that this is a team that shouldn't be in this position right now, what would your response be to the national media when you hear something like that?
Yeah, you can't control everybody's opinions. As much as people might say stuff that you disagree with. That's their opinion. My job and our team's job is to focus on the guy to the left and to the right of you. Focus on their why. Focus on why they play the game the way they do, how they play, and how can I be the best version of myself to help that guy and to help this team win. So, our response really isn't to the national media in itself, but it's more of a calling card to each other to pick up the pace, pick up the intensity a little more.
Zoe, we got quite a few questions here from Zoom. First from Mike Barber from the AP. How have you seen this offensive line come together over the season, and how good has that group been for you as the quarterback?
Yeah, they're the driving force of our unit. Just seeing young guys like Trent be able to get into the rotation as a true freshman, especially as the season has gone on, has been amazing just for him to get those reps in his back pocket. Obviously, guys like Sweezy, Pat, Toner, Riley, Joe, experienced guys with more game experience, to be able to kind of coach up those young guys has helped us a tremendous amount, especially in the rotation. When you see we rush for 300 yards, it's not just the starting five.
You have a new center this season in Zach Greenberg. And talk about the process of working in and finding a flow with your new starting center this year.
He made it easy. He made it really easy. If you talk to him, he's a high IQ guy, really smart guy. So, when it comes to protection checks or run checks or backer IDs, I don't really have to do much. Greenberg, he does a great job of that. So just being on the same unit, it's easy to talk ball with him. It's easy to say, hey, what front did you see? This is what I saw. How are you going to call this? Especially, going into game prep, blitzes. How do you want me to call this? How do you guys feel comfortable picking it up? So it's been really easy. It's been a seamless transition.
Got a question from Kayla Sweezy from Anscape. I think you might be a little familiar with one of the other offensive linemen who's related to her. At a young age, growing up around football in North Carolina, often around the campus at NCA&T, immersed in that football program, how did those experiences prepare you to take your talents to this national stage?
It's been amazing just to be able to witness and see firsthand what a college football atmosphere is, seeing guys like Tariq Cohen, Lamar Raynard, Elijah Bell, Ron Hunt, Derek Williams. The list can go on and on. Just to be able to, experience a fall football camp before that even happened, it's looking back on it, it's definitely special. just, I actually learned how to punt because they would have me catch. They'd have me go over with the specialists when they would punt on the main field. And, some of my earliest, memories are hanging out with Cody and Dom and catching punts, catching kickoffs. So, as a kid, just being able to witness that and then going down to Atlanta for the HBCU national championship and seeing them win that, and to have to hear those locker room talks, to hear, the adjustments on the sidelines. I mean, I give all the credit to my dad and my parents for, exposing me to those environments and being able to see that stuff. And, shout out to Billy. He won his HBCU national championship, so that's cool to see.
Got a couple questions from Colton Poole here from Hero Sports. Now that your team will have the spotlight this week, what do you think people should know about you as a quarterback and as a leader on this football team?
I think, they should know that all the success and accolades and awards that, they see me get is not just me. That's obviously Wayne doing his thing. Like I said, just, him breaking 50-yard runs allows me to pull the ball and, break a run here and there. The offensive line protecting allows me to, deliver the ball to Wiz and Landon and to help them be able to make contested catches. And, when I throw bad football, it's just the sure-handedness of Deej and Jaylon and all those guys. And to be able to take bubble routes or quick little choice routes and be able to take them 50-plus yards downfield, that's just, they make who I am. So it's nothing about me, but rather who my teammates are.
And his other question actually is about your running back. Wayne's been a dynamic playmaker and has done a lot for this offense and this team this year. What does he mean to you and to this team? And is there anything he can't do as a football player?
Nah. There's nothing he can't do. That guy's a beast. He's a dog. He means the world to this team. And, especially to me, just a guy that our journeys and our paths have kind of been very, very similar. We've been in similar situations, just with the coaching staff change and things of that nature, and having to fight and kick and scratch for the opportunity to be able to be had and to, maximize that opportunity and, get over setbacks and mishaps and things of that nature. That guy's a special guy. He's a special human being. And just like the rest of the guys in this building, it's an honor and a pleasure to be around them.
Let's go back to Katie Harper here in the team room.
I know you mentioned the HBCU National Championship, and I know it was a busy weekend for you, but did you get to watch it at all and see Billy get that win?
Yeah, that was a great game. Just for them to be able to come out and, erase the largest deficit in the game's history and to win just shows how special that team is. And, yeah, I was able to watch that, after graduation and all that stuff, so it was cool to see.
And then after the Sun Belt Championship, I know you put it on your Instagram story of, 12 months earlier you were confined to your bed after the surgery to then get to this point and then now preparing for the college football playoff. What do you think it says about just your work and your effort to get back to this moment?
I mean, it just, just shows, how amazing God is and, the presence that he has in my life. Just to be able to, take a moment like that and to be able to have it full circle and to make history and to continue to make history is special, and it's humbling, and it's definitely something that I don't take it for granted. Like people have said, or in the team you've said, it's not special, it's important. But looking back on this season and just within a year how fast things have changed and can change, it's been special. And right now we're in a very important moment of this team's history, this year's history, and the history of the university. So, looking to continue the good times.
Continue with running back Wayne Knight, the Sun Belt Football Championship MVP, fresh off his 212 rushing yards last time out for JMU. Let's kick things off with questions for folks in the room. First, Katie Harper from the DNR.
Wayne, you guys, it's kind of rare that you're going into a game where you're viewed as maybe the underdog in it. Is that a mindset that you guys maybe like playing with now, since it's something that you don't really experience that often?
Yeah, I mean, we can kind of use it to our advantage. Just being able to, take that and then put a, chip on our shoulder, going into this game. But, kind of just the memo throughout this whole entire year, just being able to block out the outside noise, especially, towards the end of the season, all the things came about. But just being able to, stay true to ourselves is kind of the main thing.
And kind of what I asked Coach, too, with, there are a lot of people that are overlooking not just you guys, but Tulane as well, being Group of 5 programs. What do you think people can learn about JMU in this week leading up to the game and then during the game itself?
Definitely, the brand of football that we play, nameless, faceless opponent, just being able to go out there and execute what we do, on a game in and game out basis. Kind of just sticking to our roots and dialing into the DNA that was set here previously and then continue throughout the years. Just being able to put that on display.
Preston with the breeze.
Coach was kind of talking about how much your team's offensive line just wants to run block and loves, pushing for those extra yards. But how much of guys like Lakota and Fife kind of contributed to that?
Yeah, they're definitely a huge contribution to, our success in our running game. Them boys, they fly across on bang blocks and they put, their life on the line. And, they do whatever it is that they have to do to, make sure that we get success out of a play. And, it's play in, play out, whatever they're asked to do. Them boys, they do it at a very high level and they make sure that they execute at a very high level.
What has kind of stood out to you about how Oregon defends the run so far?
Yeah, they're very sound, very fundamentally sound in everything that they do. There's not a lot of times where they, misfit or, misfit gaps and, just be in the wrong place. A lot of times you find them guys in the right place. And even if they're not, just being able to fly around the ball and, just have a great effort in every single play that they, play.
Jarvis with WHSV.
Wayne, what's kind of like the last week been like for this team in terms of the whirlwind of emotions, not knowing if you guys would be in, to then finding out you're in, now kind of turning your attention toward another game?
Yeah, it's been a lot. It's been a lot of outside news, especially, these past couple of weeks. It's definitely been a lot, going on within the college football playoff world and, just everything that's going on. Just being able to stay level-headed throughout it all is kind of just the main thing. And I think, Coach Chesney and the rest of the staff, has done a great job up to this point, just be able to keep all the players and, everyone locked in. Our captains as well, Trent and Jacob, just being able to, make sure that everyone's dialed in within the team and just you understand that we have a task at hand and we just have to stay locked in to, the task at hand.
Let's go over to Lane Casadani with CBS 6.
In the past, you guys have played teams that are a little bit faster, a little bit bigger, and it's very tough to replicate speed in practice when it's that much of a difference. What have you found personally, and what have you guys found collectively that can work in getting ready for an opponent for which you can't quite completely prepare for in practice?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing, just being able to kind of replicate the environment that we're going to be in. Coach Chesney kind of touched on it, the music that we're going to play and, those kind of things. But, from a physical aspect, just being able to, just be more fundamentally sound and, just be more dialed into the details, like we've been all year. And, it's nothing really else that you can kind of mimic, physically and, in the real world, just being able to make sure that we're locked into every single thing and make sure that, communications at a premium and that, we're doing all the little things right to, make sure that we're well prepared for the game on Saturday.
And this is an opportunity for which you have been working all season, but you can't really say, we're going to be doing this in December.
Right.
What's this been like for you guys? This is kind of like the basketball team going to the Sweet 16 or something like that. And this is a first, not just for your program, but for really college football in general. They're just getting into this playoff. What is it like being in, the beginning of something like this?
Yeah, we kind of talked about it in the beginning of the year. There's standards and things that people set outside for us. And, we kind of just know what we have set, inside within, our group and the coaching staff and everything, in the beginning of the year, just being able to set our goals at a premium and, understand that, we have what it takes and we have, the guys in the room just to put ourselves in a situation, far down the line in December. And, here we are. And, we kind of just embraced the moment. A lot of outside noise and things going on, but just being able to stay true to who we are and what we've done up to this point to prepare and put ourselves in this situation.
Let's go over to Connor with WHSV.
I know we've talked a lot about this outside noise, but when you continue hearing this whole outside noise of JMU shouldn't be in this college football playoff, what is your response to that, especially to that national media saying that?
Yeah, people who saying that, doesn't watch JMU football and, they don't understand the brand that we have here and, the kind of talent that we have here. We put it on display every single time we go out on the field. And I think that's just a huge part of, what we've done, as a team. And then, from the coaching staff standpoint, just being able to get us prepared and put us in the right situations to be successful, I think that goes a long way. So
Let's take a couple questions from Zoom here. First, Wayne, first couple questions are from Mike Barber, who's covering as a JMU correspondent, and from the Associated Press. How have you seen this offensive line come together over this season, and how good has that group been for you?
Yeah, off the field, them boys, they do a good job of just, bonding and making sure that their relationships are, at a premium off the field. And then, being able to come on the field, that kind of just translate into, the communication that they have and, how they're all on the same page, every single time that they step out on the field, just being able to, work in unison and, create success of these plays and, make it easy for them guys in the backfield.
Next one we've got, you guys have had some runs that have seemed like stop near the line of scrimmage, and then all of a sudden you pop and you got open space. Obviously, a lot of that is your effort, but what does the line have to do for those plays to hit?
Yeah, they find themselves in the right spot a lot of the time. And, you talk about effort, briefly. Coach Chesney talks about it all the time, just being able to have first, second, third efforts. It kind of just became our DNA, as the season went on. And as they, continue to work together, you find yourself in tough situations and you're battling and you continue to drive your legs and, things like that. All of a sudden, plays pop and things happen. I kind of think that's just our DNA, throughout and, the things that we preach.
Next one comes from Colton Poole from Hero Sports. You've taken on a bigger role in this offense this season. How did things change for you in preparation, from a preparation perspective, and what do you think set you up personally for the success you've seen this season in 2025?
Yeah, from preparation, I think everything's kind of stayed the same. Whether I was, a huge contributor to this offense or not, preparation remains the same. You have to prepare as though you're going to be the starter, prepare as though, you're going to take on a huge workload. And I think that's just, a huge point of, everything and, all the success that, we've had as an offense and, I've had myself this year, as a running back. But preparation remains the same. And, just without the team, through the team, with the team, just being able to, take on a kind of a leadership role and just be able to continue to, make sure guys are on the same page and make sure our offense is, clicking on the same page is kind of a huge emphasis, for me, for myself personally.
Let's go back to Katie Harper here in the room.
Wayne, you mentioned your mindset earlier. In your career so far, how much have you found that being, sound in your approach and in your mindset is it almost as important as the physical aspect and what the work you're putting in on the field?
Yeah, definitely almost as important, if not, have the same amount of importance. Kind of the mental aspect of it, just being able to, stay level-headed throughout it all and, make sure that, you're dialed into all the mental, intricacies of the game is a huge, testimony to how you perform physically. And I think they go hand in hand, one doesn't succeed without the other. So
Let's go back to Preston from the Breeze.
Wayne, I know that after the conference championship game, Zoe was talking about how 2 years ago you guys had kind of looked at each other and said, we're going to get to this stage together, like we're going to make sure we accomplish this. So what's it like to get to an even higher level, accomplish a higher feat like the playoffs with him?
Yeah, it's definitely gratifying. We understand the work that we've put in and, kind of the trials and tribulations that we've went through throughout our careers. It's definitely gratifying in a moment, but just understanding that, we didn't come this far just to come this far. We place ourselves in this situation for a reason, and, that's to continue to succeed, even after you meet expectations or, succeed your expectations, there's more work to be done.
Any other questions in the room for Wayne? All right. Thank you, Wayne.